Hey, are you Jenny?
I am.
Nice to meet you, Jenny.
Great to meet you too. Thanks for coming all this way.
All this way, it was just a hop, skip, and a jump around the corner. So I've talked to many people in the industry who all know Jenny, but I haven't really had the pleasure myself yet. So really nice to meet you. Thanks for hosting me here at Tasha's here at the Mall of Africa, I guess, where we are. You're from around here, I think you mentioned.
So we live just down the road, literally. We've been here 30 years and has mid-round changed in those 30 years for the better, I think, in a lot of aspects. Although after the Christmas we've just had with no electricity and no water, it's challenged all of us. But that goes down to our infrastructure discussion that I'm sure we will touch on. So it's a great place to live. We're very lucky.
Yeah. And are you a native South African or do you hail from otherwhere? Yeah,
I'm not. I'm English by birth and have lived all over the world thanks to my dad's job.
Okay.
He was an international banker, and as a result of which we've lived in places like Japan, Australia, and really a very privileged upbringing, but quite an unsettled one, I think. So living somewhere as long as we've lived here has been very special for me. England is still, it used to be where I call home until my mum passed away. And then you realize that actually where you are, live for the moment. And that's the important thing. So South Africa is definitely home.
So then what brought you here initially then?
So I went out to Kenya to live with my now husband, and his parents lived down here. And we thought it might be a good opportunity can't even remember when, 30 years ago, to see if we could combine looking after them, his elderly parents, and start a business of our own. And so that's what we did. And moving here was quite an experience. And I think we've done a blooming good job, actually. We started up AVEN in 1995. So we've just celebrated our 30th anniversary.
Yeah, congrats.
And for an events business and an SME is quite a challenge, but we've done well. And I think we've performed some excellent events. And one of our very, very first clients in this country was SAPICS. So that's how we got involved in this supply chain world of ours.
I'm kind of just curious before we dig into the nuts and bolts of things and talk supply chain. What do you do for fun? Like what's the hobbies and interesting things that just keep you busy when you're not doing events and work things?
So my when we're not working, which is, as you know, working for yourself, you don't ever not work. But travel is a really big. My husband is definitely of the belief that travel is the best educator.
Yes.
And fortunately, all boys, we have 4 boys.
Okay.
They all are avid travelers, and they're passing that down to their kids as well, which is brilliant. We've just had one of them has just taken their family to Sri Lanka for Christmas, which was very exciting. And we went to India with them actually and have had some fantastic family trips. But Clive and I are off to Ethiopia on Thursday for the first time, which is going to be really interesting. It's always great learning about other African countries.
We were talking earlier about your attempt to get to America here recently, and so you have not visited the U.S. then?
No, I've been a lot.
You have been a lot. Okay.
Yep. So I was very lucky to have been able to go to the ASEM conference every year. While I was working with SAPICS. So I've been to all different American cities, which is really exciting. And I actually used to live there when I was little. So I've spent formative years in New Jersey and Atlantic Beach. My dad managed the branch of Barclays at JFK.
Okay. All right. So then you did.
I got
my wires crossed then a bit. Maybe it was more recent.
No. It was in the just before COVID that I wasn't able to travel to America.
See. Gotcha. Okay. Well, so we're here kind of in this high growth area here in Midrand, and I think it's representative of just kind of this growth and this excitement, I guess, of what's going on in Africa and here in South Africa. But can you talk to that, from your view from the last 30 years
Yeah.
of just like the proliferation or growth? I think that you were mentioning SAPICS is actually 60 years old.
Yeah, this year.
Yeah. So can you kind of talk about kind of like that history?
I think, SAPICS was founded originally to look after and educate people in the mining industry about how to manage their inventory.
Okay.
And as a result of just the sheer transformation of the supply chain profession, so SAPICS has evolved during that time.
Okay.
I was very privileged to be made a life member last year.
Okay.
Shows I'm old, right? I'm a seasoned professional, I think they call
yes.
it. Old and wise, yeah. And it's a community and organization that I'm particularly proud of and passionate about. And it does reflect, and the evolution of it is very reflected in what's happening in this country. There are so many really positive signs of growth, but we've also got a huge amount of challenges that are being addressed, not as quickly as we would like. I was looking at one of our resident groups when they were moaning about potholes, and then they went on to report the potholes in our area, and were astounded by the number of potholes that are being reported just in Gauteng alone. And we all know if you've got roads with potholes, that's a whole issue in itself from the logistics professional point of view. And various things, I mentioned the water and the electricity over Christmas. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs urgent maintenance that is going to have a long-term effect on the success of this incredible country that we have. And I'm glad to hear that you've been to Durban. I'm glad to hear you're going to Cape Town, because everywhere is different. But from a supply chain point of view, there are lots and lots of challenges, but lots and lots of opportunities as well.
Sure. Those two concepts seem to go hand in hand, right? As kind of an organizer of events, and I'm starting to find myself more and more on that path. Any like insights into just of hosting events and putting them on virtual and in person? And, like, what's your experience been like in that space?
I don't ever want to do virtual events ever again in my life. We did it really successfully, and I in the first year of COVID, we did 81 online events in various formats. And I think one of the big mistakes is trying to take an in-person event and turn it into
digitize it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Whereas this way, when you realize the not shortfalls, but the differences, the subtle differences, you then get into your stride and you do it. But imagine trying to do these online events with what we then had was called load shedding, where you had no electricity for 4 to 8 hours, which means your internet is cut, which means you're in the middle of a conference and you've got to have somebody in a different district where the load shedding schedule was different. And it just added a whole different level of stress to what is already a very stressful profession.
But that seems to be perfectly representative of the bigger concepts at play, which is having to carry on and be resilient in the operations of a supply chain or a mall or a hospital, regardless of the bigger things going on or the lack of power. Kind of in having discussions and preparing for all of this, that was one of the things that I heard about is just the ability to not fully rely on the grid itself, and for manufacturing sites and places that consume power, to kind of either have a strong backup or to work off of another power source first and use the grid as the backup and things. That's a unique situation that we don't face, in North America.
No.
Yeah.
And there are lots of things that are happening behind the scenes, majority of which I'm not even aware of. But there is a lot of work being done with wind energy, with solar energy. We've got to find different solutions, but I think that that's indicative all around the world. And I just where I'm from in England, there is a huge water crisis where the local water board is not providing for residents.
Wow.
And I sit and I look at this and I think, hang on, this really sounds like Africa.
Yeah.
And we've got to understand that the whole world is facing these challenges, not just Africa.
Yeah.
And we all have to become resilient and less complacent, I think.
One of the things I've been asking folks here is about the talent pipeline and the development of, I think when you're a supply chain professional, you tend to see everything as a
Yeah.
supply chain operation. And so, as, I believe like any sort of country or continent, develops, the supply chain is a big component of that. And then in supply chain, you need the people to have the skills to be able to help improve it. And so SAPICS has been a big part of that. Can you talk about just, how you all go about developing and educating and informing people to be better supply chain professionals?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about the two different professions that I represent. One is the supply chain. SAPICS does a phenomenal job. Its authorized education partners they're more than just educators. A lot of them are ex-supply chain practitioners, so they have the practical knowledge as well as the theoretic knowledge. The ASCM, the APIC certifications are a really strong part of the education, but also entry level. And that's where I think a lot was missing. And in this country, certainly, the explosion of supply chain management, education, and training is totally indicative of where the profession is going.
Yeah.
Whereas it was just one organization or a couple. Now, universities are doing degrees,
Okay.
and there's a huge variety, huge choice, huge price differentials. It's a big decision, and I think where SAPICS does really well is educating employers
Uh-huh.
of what's out there. And also, one of my big passionate things is that education is not just all about textbooks. It's about real life experience. And as somebody people who have heard me talk before will be groaning,
Uh-huh.
I like to put QBE after my name. All these people who've got all these smart letters after their name. I have QBE, which is qualified by experience.
Okay.
And I'm a great, great, great believer in learning from other people. And community is everything, because that's how you learn things you don't know you need to know.
Yes. Yes. You said that there was two
Two.
halves of that.
Yeah. So the
how
other
about
is the
the
event profession.
Okay. Okay.
And, again, I've learnt it by doing. I've never been taught anything apart from through the experience of my husband, who is my business partner,
Uh-huh.
and my own experience working in London managing a conference venue.
Uh-huh.
But to see here fabulous education being offered by universities in the hospitality, tourism, and event management space, and to have been privileged to have been able to employ students, interns, over the last 3 years. We've
Uh-huh.
done it both pre event and also during event. There's such an energy and a vibrancy to the young people who are really passionate about event management,
Okay.
which is really exciting to see. It's not just something you do as a offshoot because you are an assistant in the marketing department.
Yeah.
You've actually trained for this.
Okay.
You know how to do an event budget. You know what the important things are to look out for. And that's really exciting.
Events, I think, at the end of the day, again, everything being supply
Uh-huh.
chain, is an event is a little bit of a project in supply chain in and of itself. You were mentioning earlier that, and it was a bit surprising that there's places in Africa other than South Africa that are leading the charge and really trying and working on being a go-to
Yeah.
for conferences and
Yeah.
events and stuff. And
Yeah.
can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah. There are some absolutely fabulous venues around Africa, and I've only just touched the surface. I've used venues in Senegal, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Uganda, most recently in Ghana. And the profession is really alive and well. There are a lot of governments that are actively working to become leading event venues,
Mhm.
Rwanda being one. Ethiopia is building a brand new airport
Okay.
to cope with the volume of traffic that they have, and they want to turn Ethiopia into a leading destination. Kenya has been for years and years, and Kenya's tourism education is probably second to none on the continent. It's something that everybody understands the value of tourism, but also of the business event
Mhm.
tourism that comes with it. So
Okay.
yeah, there's a lot. And I can remember somebody coming, an American speaker coming over to SAPICS conference many moons ago. We held it at Sun City, which is an interesting facility.
Mhm.
And she looked at me and she said, "Who could imagine that an event like this could happen in Africa?"
Yeah.
And that stuck with me for forever, because it's something that I'm so proud of,
Mhm.
is our ability to host whatever world class is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do it, and we do it really, really well as a country.
Mm. I'm curious, there's a in the business of educating, informing, entertaining, I guess, a profession or a community, there's a balance, and you've got to pay the bills and you've got to keep the lights on. And that typically requires reaching out and talking with sponsors and folks to be able to underwrite the cost of things. How has that appetite been here, in your time here of, is it a struggle, to sometimes find those benefactors to help make sure that
Oh
the
yeah.
events can stay on, and,
Mhm.
and any kind of insights and stories there?
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. If you look at the sponsors from the SAPICS conference perspective, there's definite cycles.
Okay.
There were the ERP vendors, there were the big five, there were all sorts of different industries all at the same time. And what I've noticed over the last, let's say, 6 years, is the diversity of the sponsorship. It's no
Okay.
longer one industry. It's not the logistics, the 3PLs supporting.
Yeah.
You've got all sorts of different companies that are supporting. It is hard, but one of the most rewarding things is working with an organization that has got such a history
Uh-huh.
and such a legacy. It's a great thing, and people know what they're investing in. But it's also the neutrality. And that's something that we've seen with the Africa Supply Chain Excellence Awards. We've seen it with SAPICS. We saw it with People That Deliver, is that the more neutral you are
Hmm.
and not aligned to one organization,
Yes.
the easier it is to attract the funding. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And that struggle to balance, the revenue generating element of a business with the social good, I guess is,
That's right.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, one of our new projects, which is a really exciting one, it's AMTech. It's the African Healthcare um, manufacturing, and it's all specifically around the manufacture of healthcare and commodities in Africa, which
Uh-huh.
is such a topical discussion at the moment, but something that we need to stop from being discussion and turn it into
Hmm.
reality. But also that interesting for me from the outside to see the different kinds of businesses that want to invest in that.
Hmm.
And it's just understanding your event and knowing who to approach and what it is, what the value is to them.
Right.
But I go back over and over and over again to, it's people don't want to be sold to when they come to a conference. They want to make their own decision.
Yeah.
So that's where having an exhibition, the booths and
Yeah.
you go there and you're going to get sold to.
Hmm.
One of the things that I think SAPICS has always been really good about doing is not allowing people to sell from the from the lectern, from
Okay.
the podium.
Okay.
It's obviously with a case study that's really hard, because
Yeah.
how do you talk about this great software that saved your life if you
Yes.
can't mention it? But there are ways of doing it, and I think the clever people manage that really well,
Okay.
so that they're selling but they're not selling, and then you go to the booth for the hard sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
People want to come to events to meet people and to network.
Hmm.
That's the thing, or to choose what they're sold,
I see.
not have it sort of thrown at them.
I guess we would kind of wrap up here a bit.
Mm.
If we're going to kind of give any like parting words or last bits of wisdom here regarding just events and supply chain and Africa and South Africa, like, for folks, particularly in North America, I guess
Mm,
where my main
mm.
audience is. Any like kind of insights?
Yeah, I think for me, the strongest thing is that we've all got so much to learn from each other.
Hmm.
Whether it's African, whether it's North American, whether it's from Thailand or whatever, supply chain back best practice
Yeah.
and event management best practice are what truly matter. And we've all experienced different things. You said you went to 30 conferences last year. You can teach me a thing or two, I know, from a delegate, because a delegate perspective is so different to an organizer's
Right.
perspective.
Right.
We assume we know what delegates want, and 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. So it's always being able to listen, to learn, and to just hear what others have to say. I think in whatever profession it is, and supply chain is one of those where there are so many best practices that people take for granted, and it's a constant thing of just keeping on top of what's current, what works, what doesn't work, and
Yeah.
really learning from other people. Don't be too proud to ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking a moment to
Not
catch
at
up.
all.
Great to hear from you. And looking forward
Yeah.
to continuing the conversation.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. It's been really great to meet you.
Likewise.